Welcome back, dear teachers, to the fourth episode of your favorite podcast, Teaching Tales. I'm your host, Mischelle Denniz, and I'm super excited to dive into the inspiring journey of another remarkable teaching superstar. But before I introduce our guest for today, let me remind you what Teaching Tales is all about. So this podcast is dedicated to celebrating the incredible stories of our beloved teachers who continue to inspire, educate, and leave a lasting impact on our lives. Through candid conversations, we uncover the challenges they face, shed light on their triumphs, and honor the passion they have for teaching. Now, without further ado, let's meet our guest for today's episode, Mr. Ashwin James Lal, a passionate history teacher from New Delhi, India. Ashwin's experience from living in different parts of the world has equipped him with adaptability, diversity, and a unique worldview. And his teaching journey is nothing short of remarkable. So let's dive into the fascinating world of history and teaching with him. Welcome to the show, Ashwin. So happy to have you here today with us.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's been a privilege being a part of this. And,
awesome.
Surasa has been quite interesting for us, and in fact, there were many things that I've learned by being a part of this program. And I think it's fantastic that such a portal exists, because in this profession that we are in, we need people to promote teaching. We need educators to feel connected, to have a network, so that is dedicatedly for education. So I think that's a really good job on what Surasa is doing.
And that's exactly what we want to do. We want educators to feel connected, to have a space, and yes, that's what we hope to build. All right. So let's dive right into it. Okay.
Sure.
My first question: why history? Some people, people see history as rather a dry subject. So, what sparked your passion for it, and why have you chosen to make it the centerpiece of your teaching journey?
That's a question that I think I get asked almost every interview, that why history. And the one thing that for me, history is something that I connect with a lot of ease. And I come from a family where most of us are history buffs. My father was one. A lot of my cousins are into history, and many of them are teachers as well. And incidentally, it happens to be social science. So you can call us a family of, which is very humanities driven. So we like that stream. It's interesting, lots to read, lots to unearth, a lot of things to, discuss. My dad has been a very big source of inspiration for me, where, we would talk about current events. We would discuss history topics. And because my father was in the IFS, I got to travel the world. I've been to almost 13 places now, and I've lived in almost 5 or 6 of them. So a majority of my schooling has been, abroad. I've had almost 6 years of American education and around 4 to 5 years of, CBSE education. So I can see between different boards. I've been a little bit in CBSE. I've been in IB. So it's very interesting for me. And every place I went, I interacted with the culture there. I got to sample the different cuisines. Learn a little bit of the language. Obviously, you can't learn much, because every place we moved to, we would only stay there for 3 years, and then my dad would get transferred back to India, and then that was fun. It was fun. Made a lot of friends. A lot of them are now in different parts of the world, and being a world student, being a world history student, it felt really good. And somewhere I feel that I identify myself as a third culture kid. So it's something that because I've lived in Prague, I've lived in a little bit I've lived in Europe, I've lived in Africa. I'm from Asia, so there's a lot of things that I've learned over the course of years. And I feel somewhere that is where the unique worldview comes from, and that's what sort of fanned the flame for history as well. Because every place we would be there, we would go sightseeing, see the monument, and that would sort of excite me. And for me, I am extremely enthusiastic about the First World War, Second World War, because I've lived in parts of Europe, seen those places, so it has a different connect altogether. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wow, that's amazing. So you mentioned something about a third. Oh, what was it? I didn't catch that.
Third culture kid.
Yes.
I'm a third culture kid.
Explain that. That's the first time I'm hearing a term like that.
So a third culture kid is somebody who's experienced more than 2 cultures. So I am an Asian. So there's something called an Asian culture. Then when you go to Africa has a unique culture of its own. And then Europe, obviously, because European mindset is very different So because my father was in the MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, all of us embassy kids are generally third culture kids, because we've seen so many cultures that, you start making parallels, making comparisons at times as well. And somewhere I feel that, when you come back home, you're not the same person. A lot of people always even ask me that, are you really from Delhi? Or are you even Indian? Because you have a very different way of looking at things. Because, I'm not trying to say that whatever, people who don't travel are maybe reserved or don't have a worldview, but it's just that when you travel, it becomes a little easier for you. If you've traveled and if you've been to different schools, if you've learned different histories, interacted with different cultures, experienced different languages, it changes you as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like when you travel, you can't just be reserved, right? You are forced to open up and reach out to people. So that influences a lot of your experiences and changes your views to a lot of things. Like you see how things are here and you see how things are there, and you're like, okay, yeah, like you said, making the comparison, right? Mm-hmm. So you talked about how your family loves humanities. You guys love reading. A lot of you are history buffs and things. So that brings me to my next question. Like, you made history sound really fun for me right now, which was not the case when I was in school. Okay, so how do you make a subject that most people view has only years to memorize? Like, it's just a bunch of years to memorize. How do you make it fun for your students?
So, Mischelle, a lot of times what happens is, like you said initially in your first question, people have this notion that history is something that is very boring and it's all about remembering the dates, remembering the key personalities. But, oftentimes especially when I was growing up, and, I am talking from both schools, I'm talking about the teachers that I had in CBSE, even the teachers that I had in IB, I learned something new. In the Indian system, I remember that there's a lot of emphasis was given on, drawing parallels, between, be it Mughal history or, be it how colonialism as a concept. It's not just something that only affected India. It was the various colonies that were there. They all had a very collective experience in some sort. So, with CBSE schools, I learned about that. And when I went to IB, it was all about, worldview. How do, if I say that, Hitler is generally perceived as a person who was very evil, who was very racist. But are there schools of thought that support that kind of thinking? And what is their rationale? You may not agree with it. I don't have to agree with everything that I read. But as a historian, it's my job to be open, to be objective. And then when I become objective, history starts becoming interesting. Why is it that a person like Hitler was able to rise to power? Or why is it that that you have tyrants who come to power day in and day out? Even today, that's happening. So if you have knowledge of history, and if you have the right kind of teachers, you start looking at things objectively, formulating your own opinion. I don't take things at face value. All my teachers taught me that no matter what you read, whether it's a news item, whether it's a podcast, even if it's a discussion, always ultimately you have to go back and reflect and start pondering. Okay, whatever I've read, is it valid? Have I fact checked it? Have I verified it? And then I need to come to a more informed decision. So for me, when I teach history to my students, oftentimes the emphasis is on relate. I am a huge movie buff as well. So a lot of my classes are a mix of videos that I show them to help them understand, because many history topics can be very dry and very mundane. So for let's say for younger grades, in higher grades it's not so much of a problem, but especially grade 6, grade 7, grade 8 onwards, you need to keep it engaging. So it has to be a mix of videos. I love debates, because when I was growing up, I had debates. We used to have something called the Model United Nations. So in our school, and that's very closely related to what we teach in history as well. So all the topics that we learn in history usually, coincide with the MUN topics as well. So it's like a simulation of Model United Nations where people debate, discuss world issues. You take on new roles. I can become the delegate of China. Somebody could be the delegate of Pakistan, delegate of India, and we have a debate about it. We can take issues from what may be happening at that particular point of time, or even events that may have happened, let's say 20 years back. So I remember one of the MPNs was about the Second World War. They went back in time and they pretended that they were in the Second World War, and they chose their country and they had that. I mean, the formats are endless. But my point is that when you have such platforms, or when you align your subject like history with these platforms, it becomes engaging. It becomes practical. People often like subjects that that have some kind of a practicality. And for me, in my whenever I take history, I make it a point that there are videos being shown, debates being done. I'm a huge promoter of game-based learning as well. So be it Jeopardy games, quiz shows, or it could also be creating my own games. And students love that. It's a good form of revision as well. It's a good form of introducing a new topic or even culminating a new topic. When you're ending a topic, oftentimes people don't like the conventional quizzes. But if you have a game show and you monitor each and every person and make a scorecard for everybody, it becomes interesting. A lot of my classes also revolve around themes. I often say that history is not just about the dates. If you know the themes, if you know the basic chronology of events, that is more important. So students love that. And oftentimes a little bit of sense of humor is also very important. If you want to teach a subject like history, you have to. I know some people might find it a little corny that why these teachers, they keep cracking these jokes, but you have to keep the environment light. You have to keep the environment interesting. And if it's a mix of activities, thinking routines, I think students generally don't get bored. Obviously, there are times when you might be having the last class of the day on a Friday when Saturday, Sundays and off. Obviously, you'll have some concentration dwindling here and there. But as a teacher, it's your job to not break the momentum of the class. It's always good to sometimes it happens that people may not be in the mood to learn. So you have to tweak your plan. You maybe go back. Okay, fine. So let's stop the lesson here. Let's have a quick recap of what we have done, and introduce a recap game. And that way, at least the class is not going to waste, and you have something in stock, something that is valuable, something that rather than saying, okay, fine, let's have free play, or let me just end the class here. You guys can do whatever you want to do. If you keep your class engaged, that is what keeps the students going. And obviously, the most important thing is that if you're planned, your class can't be boring, because you will definitely have accounted for different scenarios. You really can't plan all the scenarios.
Yeah.
But more or less, as a teacher, I'm teaching for more than 6 years now. So I've gotten the hang, when my class starts going haywire, I know, okay, I have to take a pause here, maybe bring in a couple of other connections, try to bring them back on track. And they love doing that. It's sometimes it's also about how you present your subject. Often people have this misconception that what exactly will I do after reading history, or what's the purpose of reading history or learning history? How will this help me in my career? So usually when I start at the beginning of the year, I do this with all my batches. That I often take my first class of the year will always be about why history, what's the importance, how is it relevant. And I feel when you set that tone in the beginning of the year, people know that this is going to be fun. Okay. So if you can captivate them in that first session, they will be interested till the last day of school. Whether they take it, whether they drop the subject next year, that's a different story. But with the time that they are with you, they will like it.
Wow, like just listening to you talk about how you present your classes and how you have your classes with the gamification, the mix of videos, lectures, debates, everything. It sounds so fun, and it seems like it's like really working for you. And I'm sure that our fellow teachers are going to find all of these hacks that you just gave really valuable, especially the one where you said, like, set the tone for the rest of the year, make them understand why history, like that's an amazing tip, like, which not everybody does or everybody gets, right? Like that at least makes them understand the importance of having that class. Because usually you're like, history, what am I going to do with history? What's the most I'm going to do with history, right? That's always the first question in a student's mind, like, oh, I have history this year. Great. Now, you talked about these amazing teaching strategies and how you engage your students. So I would like to know if you learned some of these strategies during your journey as a PGCTL student.
So for me, PGCTL was more of a refresher. Because, as an IB student, all of these things that I'm learning, right, my teachers have been doing it, be it Bloom's taxonomy, or be it the game-based learning, be it, how teaching strategy. So, because, when you're studying in an American system, right, a lot of things, are very different from what we do in India.
Yeah.
And that's purely because of the fact that, they have a wider variety of resources. India was a developing country for a very long time, right? And that's probably the reason why but now the CBSE schools are much better. Compared to when I was studying in CBSE, that has come a long way. And I think even the pandemic has really boosted that. So, but the thing is that, when it comes to the teaching strategies, PGCTL is a good way to sort of help me to recap those things that I had seen in my IB days. And even when I started my first job, because my first job was in Rajkot. I was teaching in Gujarat for 6 years, and I was teaching in a in an IB school there. So what happened was that because it was an IB school, we had to learn these things. So we had taken some, because we were a Cambridge IB school, so we had workshops by Cambridge. We had IB workshops which taught us all these things. But when the way we learned it at PCTL was more hands-on, because because IB workshops and Cambridge workshops are good. They're short. They're maximum 3 months, 2 months, and it's more to do with marking schemes and how to understand the syllabus. Whereas PGCTL was more about okay, if this scenario happens, how do you deal with that? Or the videos that were there at the portal, it tells you each and everything. Every term is supported with an example, followed by, let's say, a short quiz. So it's good. And the beautiful part is that even after you're done with the course, it will stay with you. Because sometimes we forget things, and if you want to come back to it, it's right there. It's nicely organized. Your assignments are right there. It's been checked. There has been given feedback. So even if because as a teacher, I always tell this to my students, you can't be a walking, talking encyclopedia, because at every point you will need a reminder, right? Even I've been teaching history for so many years, but there are times when I have to go back and, oh, I forgot about this fact. As a teacher, you're always learning, constantly learning. So PGCTL, I feel, in India is a very good course, because a lot of us, what we learn in our conventional B.Ed, I mean, they are good, no doubt, but I'm sorry, but they're still not at par with the 21st century challenges, which I think PGCTL is nicely addressing those challenges, and it's actually bridging that gap. So even in my batch, there are a lot of people who are already, even I myself, I've had a B.Ed and I still did this. Because somewhere I feel that, because if you want to get into international teaching, PGCTL is that one platform which will give you, so it will tell schools that, you have some kind of an international training.
Okay.
And I feel that way PGCTL is very, very helpful. I feel the way you prepare your candidates, the way the interview, the mock sessions are there. I loved each and every instructor, all the sessions that I had, even though all of them were online. Sometimes online got boring, but despite that, I think I've learned a lot in terms of how to keep things interesting, because a lot of those sessions are online. So now if tomorrow, God forbid, if there's a pandemic situation again, there are a few tips I borrowed from your instructors as well. How did they take the sessions? Because when we are getting taught, we also become like our students, and that's I realized that hands-on. So I knew, and the way the instructors would navigate, circumvent around things, try to bring us back to the class. Be it turning the camera on, or be it like participating, or if sometimes it would happen that it would be on a Sunday in the afternoon, and people are like just not really in the mood to participate, then the teacher would somehow make the class so interesting, or throw in a surprise game or a surprise fact there, and I would just make things much easier.
Wow, I mean that's amazing to hear you say that PGCTL not just help you refresh everything that you learned previously and gave you a practical experience, but you also were able to capture some of the methodologies that our professors use in class to keep you guys entertained, which is wow.
Yeah.
It's like the whole package. Great. And how did you come to know about Surasa and the PGCTL program? And what exactly motivated you to join the program?
So for PGCTL, I think there was because I like browsing YouTube a lot, and I think there was a channel called Strings and Strokes, which apparently because it's a teaching couple, because my wife and I are also a teaching couple. Mm-hmm. So we were just browsing these channels. They were just trying to find out are there other teaching couples in India, because in India apparently teaching couples are still not such a big thing. It's coming up, but it's not such a big thing. Unlike Europe or America or the western part of the world, that it's very common. But India, I feel very, very few schools entertain that concept. But I think when I saw the Strings and Strokes channel, it was quite nice, and they told us that there are many portals like Surasa which are equipping teachers to become international teachers. Mm-hmm. So then that got me a little curious. So I clicked on the website, I had a demo session, and then that's how I found out about it.
Okay, that's nice. And was there a specific motivation, a point of motivation that made you join the PGCTL program, or?
So for me, the biggest USP I would say would be the fact that after completion of the course, right, there is a lifelong. I would not call it. I would call it perk, maybe a lifelong perk of Surasa sort of helping you with placements.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that you can. It's a good networking portal. Dedicatedly for teachers, not like LinkedIn where everybody can talk to anybody. Dedicatedly for educators. So it makes it a little exclusive, and sort of makes you feel a little more important that, okay, fine, this is a portal that's just for teachers. I feel something that is lacking, in the education sector overall, because, you don't have dedicated portals where you can just, network with the other fellow teachers, talk to them about what their challenges are, or, even apply for a job. And not just in India, the beauty is it's in India as well as outside.
Yeah.
So, a lot of us, because we are global citizens. Come on, we live in a globalized society. So people want to travel, people want to explore, and what better way than becoming an educator? Bring a little bit of your culture to that part of the world and take something from there and bring it back to your part of the world whenever you're coming back. And for me, because I've always traveled all my life, Surasa I felt was that platform where I felt that, if I want to become a world history teacher and I want to travel and teach in different parts of the world, it's something that'll really, really, enhance my portfolio. It's like a feather in your cap. You have it, it's good. And frankly speaking, I think it's something that I see growing as well, because a lot of people are tapping into it. A lot of people are realizing the potential of teaching, because we sadly, even in my classroom, I don't see people saying that I want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
But I feel if you have a platform like Surasa coming up, and people start looking at the quality of the quality of teachers it's providing, to different schools, maybe that might just change the perception. Maybe that might just, if I always say this to my students, if even one of you decides to be a teacher, I'd be the happiest. And it doesn't have to be a history teacher, it can be any teacher, because what kind of, I am an educator, but tomorrow I'll have kids. What kind of educator would be there for my child? And so on and so forth. Because somewhere you want good educators to be there, and I feel Surasa is really contributing towards that.
Great. Brilliant. I mean, like you said, having a platform like Surasa might inspire more people to get into the field of teaching, and that's exactly what we want to do. Our aim is to produce the next 1 million teachers. Right? That's what we want to do. We want to let everyone know how great the teaching profession is, and it's not just one level. There's so many things that you can do as a teacher. The opportunities are endless these days. I want to know one more thing. Like, do you feel PGCTL has transformed you on a personal level as well, or has it just impacted you professionally? What are your thoughts here?
Professionally, I really can't say much, because I was hardly 3 months into the course when I switched. 4 months into the course when I switched my job, and then I think around by the time I was in exactly halfway, I actually came, because there was 3-month notice period that I had to serve, and by the time I got to the new place, so they didn't even consider the PGCTL thing at that time, because I was still pursuing it, so I couldn't really put it in my CV as well.
Okay.
So, but I would say at a personal front, yes, because I feel like, the teachers that were there in the course, right? And I saw people from all walks of life, all boards, all sorts of boards, people bringing in all kinds of connects. You had people from, government schools, you had people from private schools, you had people who were not teaching in schools, but were just interested in the course itself. So that gave so much perspective, in terms of when we would have discussions, or when we would just talk amongst ourselves as well, because oftentimes that would happen that you would make study groups, meet for, like, say, especially when it came to doing assignments. A lot of us, because not everybody was at par with a lot of things, because some of those, but I did notice that those who were active teachers slightly had it easier, including me, and those who were still, getting to it, or were just starting out their teaching career, they needed some help, and I feel like, I also helped many of them out. They also helped me out, and I felt that it was a good exchange that took place. Somewhere I felt that there was a lot of unlearning that went on, because as teachers, sometimes we start taking things for granted. Yeah, I know this. Why are they saying it like that? But then when you start start looking at things from their perspective, and okay, fine, it's a situation that they're trying to address, you realize that there is some merit in what they're saying as well. So it's good. It was a good humbling experience, I would say, because a lot of things that you got to unlearn, a lot of things that I got to relearn, a lot of things that I got to revisit. So I felt that, on a personal level, I feel it had more of a connect with me. Professional, I couldn't really say much because this job came before that. Had I done the course and then maybe put this up in my CV and then maybe sent my resume across. But I know that since I'm done with it, once I get my certification, once all my assignments have been turned in, when I get that final certification, I am quite positive that it will enhance the teaching portfolio, because a lot of teachers don't realize the importance of a portfolio, because it's something that Surasa helps. Again, that's one other thing that Surasa has been helping with. A lot of the teachers in my batch were quite shocked that there has to be a portal that we have to make, but nobody taught us about this. And teachers, mind you, who have been teaching for 15 years, 20 years, not having a portfolio, because they probably it never occurred that there has to be something like that. When Surasa starts talking about documentation, sample assignments, lesson plans, observation forms. Now, I have been doing it because most IB schools do that, but a lot of Indian schools don't, sadly. But they are getting to it. Because CBSE has made some changes. But I think right now, for now, it's safer to say that Surasa is bridging that gap. So something that the B.Ed doesn't, because the B.Ed only gives you a little bit of it, but the hands-on practical experience is where I think Surasa comes in handy.
Wow, that it's so heartwarming to hear you talk about how much PGCTL, the program by Surasa, has had such a profound impact on your life. I mean, how you talked about unlearning things that you've learned before and seeing things differently. It's just amazing to hear the impact that this course has made. Let's dive back into your journey as a history teacher. I'm curious to know, among all the fascinating topics in history, I know you've said a couple of times world history, all right, but I still want to ask you, which one is your absolute favorite topic in history to teach, and what makes it so special to you?
So for me, like I mentioned, because my favorite topic also resonates with the reason why I teach history as well. Because for me, because being a IFS kid, my father being in the IFS, I traveled the world quite a lot. So while growing up, I remember growing up, I was in Moscow for 3 years, I was in Prague for 3 years. So we used to visit a lot of World War I, World War II sites, and that really, really fascinated me, especially when we were in Moscow. They had a dedicated, museum to it. So we saw that, and that really got me interested. And when I started learning about World War I and World War II during my IB history days, I think that's when I realized that if I was to ever become an educator, I would want to teach history, and I would want to. This is my favorite topic because the kind of teacher that I had at that time, and that's what really motivated me. Because the kind of games he would make us play, the kind of debates you would have in the class, the kind of discussions that would happen. And somewhere I feel that because I had a teacher like that, I would do the same in my classroom as well. And because of that particular teacher, because of the topic that he taught us, somewhere that topic became my favorite topic as well. And it's been like that since till now. I mean, all topics are very interesting, but this is something that's very close to my heart. Because I've lived in this part of the world, and having to teach it is, I think, it's like the cherry on top.
Great. I think we'll have to have a different podcast just to talk about your experience of visiting the World War I places in Moscow, or World War II. So that would be really fun to hear your experience. So what you've said now, right, that world history is so interesting. So I come from a CBSE school background. Okay, world history was not it was not top of our history subjects. We had minimum, it was, I can't remember much of world history other than, yes, we did touch on World War I, World War II and things like that. But the interesting part about history for me was the civilizations, the different civilizations that that got set up in India and all of those things. That was interesting, and I had some really good memories of my teacher. I have some really good memories of my history teacher, waiting for her to come. She used to always make class interesting. So while we're on the topic of school memories, okay, I'm sure you've had some memorable moments in the classroom as a teacher. Would you like to share any funny or interesting stories that have happened during your teaching adventures? I mean, we always love a good laugh, so please go ahead and entertain us with your funny tales.
I think it usually when you become a teacher, right? It's actually in your first few years, I would say. Especially because most of us when we start out, we usually start out with younger grades. For me, it was I remember grade 6 that I started out, and because that was literally my first day. So people started giving out wrong names, and I would call them out, and they would start laughing, and they would start giggling, and I'm like, what exactly is happening? Why are they laughing? And then just to baffle the teacher a little bit, it was a harmless prank. But then I later got onto it, and I figured that people are trying to pull a fast one, and it's something that well, they are hardly 9-10 years old at that time, and they're just being funny, being a bit cheeky. This is the new teacher, and I see that happening in every school. It's just that people, because when you are new at your job, you're already so nervous. How will I be? What will I be doing in the classroom today? And suddenly, people start laughing. It throws your concentration off a little bit. Now I'm finding it amusing. At that point, I got very nervous. Am I saying something? Is there something on my face? And I'm like, did I spill something on my t-shirt? Is my pen leaking? All kinds of thoughts start popping in your mind. But then okay, fine. It's a prank that happens. And sometimes you would have kids coming up with all kinds of stories to like, so sir, I want to go outside right now. I want to do this right now. And you just have to take it with a pinch of salt. And later on, as you become more and more seasoned, you talk to other colleagues, you realize, okay, how to deal with it, how to take it in a good, light, humorous manner. And I feel if you can as an educator, it's equally important to take a joke on yourself as well. It's good to crack jokes with the students, but if they're kids, they will do that. And oftentimes, if you start reacting harshly, or if you become, let's say, too aggressive, it's a sign that you are not open to jokes, you're not open to interacting with them. And oftentimes, it's with humor you bond the most with your children.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen I've seen that firsthand. So when you open up with them and you laugh with them, obviously time and place for everything. You have to set that tone. But an occasional chuckle here and there, I think it's not a bad thing.
Oh, wow. I mean, this little prank that they pulled on you, I can't even imagine doing something like that to my teachers. Like when I was growing up, teachers meant like it was godparents and then your teacher, right? And it's like, okay, no pulling pranks, no disrespecting them, no back talks, nothing. You have to be really good. But you always had those students who could go over that and still get to the teacher, right?
Yeah.
Great. I mean, story was really funny, and thank you for sharing that. I really had a good laugh. I was like on the verge of like wiping a tear because it made me laugh so hard. Great. So now let's amp up the fun with a rapid fire round. Are you ready for some quick and exciting questions, Ashwin?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
No time to think. You just have to answer whatever comes to your mind. You have 120 seconds. I'm going to time it. So far, all my guests, everyone has gone past the 120 mark. Okay. So let's see if you can break the record and, finish our 10 questions within the 120 mark. Okay. So we're going to start right now. Favorite historical site you visited?
I would say it would be Victory Park in Moscow.
Nice. Coffee person or tea person?
Tea.
Okay. If you could have a superpower in the classroom, what would it be?
To make everybody like me at all times.
Okay. What's your favorite teaching app you used almost every day?
Favorite teaching app? I would say YouTube. I like it. If you know providing you know how to navigate through it. It requires a little bit of skill, but yeah, it has a lot of historical content, lot of educational videos, by the way.
Great. Okay, one word to describe your experience with Surasa.
I would say humbling and enlightening. I don't know which one to go for, but you can take any of the ones.
Great, I will take both. One historical figure you would like to invite to your classroom.
I would want Subhash Chandra Bose to come once because I'm recently taking Indian history. Very, very intrigued by that.
Nice, very nice. A movie you recommend everyone watch?
A movie I feel everyone should watch. I would say 1917 by Sam Mendes. It's a good take on the First World War, how the world really changed after that.
Okay, so we're out of time. Okay, but I'm still gonna ask you the question. 1917. Wait, this is the movie with this that goes in the single shot, is it?
Yes, that's the one.
Great. I actually watched this in the theater.
It
was a very good experience.
The same one.
Nice. Okay. Which is your dream institution to teach at?
Dream institute to teach at? I've not never thought of a dream institute, but I want to be a teacher. No matter where it is that I go, I would like to be a teacher only. I can't narrow pinpoint one because it's very hard. I have that passion to keep traveling the world. So narrowing it down would sort of mean that I would tie myself to a place. So I can't really pinpoint one place.
Okay, that's still nice. So every place that you want to go to, they all get a piece of you. They all get to meet Ashwin.
Yeah, I think you put it better.
Great. So if you could time travel, which historical era would you visit?
World War II.
Great. Why though? My question. Okay, World War II. Which country? Which side are you going to visit?
I'm very intrigued by how the Manhattan Project came about in America when they with that nuclear bomb which finally ended the Second World War, because that's when society actually changed. Had it not been for that bomb, we would have been living in a very different world. So that is where the big change happened. So I wanted to see what was the fuss all about, which great minds are working on this. It was a devastating event, the bomb that was dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. But nevertheless, it must have been quite interesting to come up with that, build it. What powers were involved, what were the motives? Because our students learn about it all the time, so I want to see it firsthand if I can.
How would you like your students to remember you?
I would like them to remember me, we remember that history teacher, the one who would always bring up these interesting connections, interesting stories, anecdotes. I'm okay with that.
Great,
because it's the anecdotes that stick with them. The content they will remember right now. 5 years from now, they may not. But if you had an anecdote for every event you taught, trust me, the anecdotes stick. For me, even today, it's the anecdotes that my teachers said. They are the ones that still keep me thinking about those topics. It's not the content they taught. It's the stories that they have.
Exactly. I'm also sure the experience what you experienced in their class, how great that they made the subject for you, that also stays with you. So I'm sure I'm already interested in history. I'm getting my interest back for history just from talking to you here. And I'm sure your students are going to remember you long after they've left your class.
Yeah.
Great. I'm sure they will. And this rapid fire session was definitely entertaining and super fun. So now, before we wrap up, I'd like you to share a special message with our fellow teachers out there about why should someone step up for their career growth, why should they reflect, and how Olympiads and self-assessment tests can help them in this process.
So, for all those teachers out there who are trying to, build their career in international education, I feel that platforms like Surasa will really, really help you. Because there are a lot of things that they teach you, the fine intricacies of things, from be it mock scenarios or the pedagogy itself. Because the kind of world that we live in, technology is constantly evolving, and so are the challenges that are associated with it. And I feel that if you have a course like PGCTL, it will definitely equip you to not just handle those challenges, but to thrive within those challenges.
Okay.
That's all.
And with that, we come to the end of yet another inspiring episode of Teaching Tales. Thank you, Ashwin, for being an incredible guest and sharing your passion for teaching and history with us.
Thank you so much, Mischelle, for having me. It was wonderful interacting with you.
Likewise, Ashwin, likewise. And to all our listeners, if you like this episode, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to never miss an update from us. And make sure you share your memories of your favorite history teacher in the comment section. Until next time, happy teaching, everyone, and bye.